Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into Ebola virus disease, EVD. You've got a whole stack of sources here. And really, our mission is to pull out the most critical stuff so you feel properly informed about this, well, pretty serious illness.
Absolutely. And what these sources show right off the bat is that Ebola is severe, often fatal. It's caused by a virus first spotted, way back in '76 near the Ebola River, hence the name.
Right.
And it's zoonotic. That means it starts in animals.
Okay, zoonotic. So looking at the virus itself, the material says it's an RNA virus, but here's something the sources really stress.
Yeah.
It's not just one single virus, is it?
No, that's fascinating, isn't it? The sources point to several different species. The one most people have heard of, the one behind that huge 2014-2016 West Africa outbreak.
Yeah, that was everywhere.
That's the Ebola virus proper, or Ebo-V. Historically, it's been the deadliest.
Okay, Ebo-V, the main one. But then the sources also talk about Sudan virus, SUDV.
Yeah.
Says it's the second most common, also really dangerous. Responsible for more recent outbreaks, too, like Uganda in 2022. And there's mention of one in 2025.
Exactly. And this difference between species, it's not just, academic detail.
Right.
The sources make it clear that treatments or vaccines that work for Ebo-V might just not work for SUDV.
Oh, okay. That's critical.
Yeah. And there are others, too, like Typhorus virus, TAFV, just one known non-fatal case there, and Reston virus, REST-TV, which, it doesn't seem to cause severe illness in humans. So Ebola really means a whole family of viruses we need to consider.
Okay, so this family of viruses, where do they actually come from? The sources seem to point towards fruit bats as the likely sort of natural reservoir.
That's the leading theory, yes. Bats carry it, apparently without getting sick themselves. And the jump to humans, the spillover, often seems to happen through direct contact with infected animals.
Like handling bushmeat.
Yes, handling or consuming infected animal meat, sometimes called bushmeat, is a key risk factor identified in the sources.
But once it's actually in the human population, the spread happens differently.
Yeah.
Right? The sources are very specific about this, and it feels like a point that often gets confused.
Absolutely. It's almost entirely through direct contact. We're talking contact with bodily fluids, blood, vomit, diarrhea, semen, saliva, pretty much any fluid from someone who is actively sick with Ebola.
Or someone who has sadly died from it.
Yes, or from the deceased. And that contact needs a pathway, like broken skin or mucous membranes, eyes, nose, mouth.
And here's a really key piece from the sources. A person isn't contagious until they actually show symptoms. That seems vital for controlling outbreaks.
It really is huge implications for contact tracing. But there's a challenge they mentioned, too. In some survivors, the virus can persist. It can hang around in certain body fluids for quite a while.
Oh.
Yeah, especially semen, sometimes for months after recovery. So that poses a potential transmission risk even then.
Okay, so let's be really clear. Based on the sources, what is it not transmitted by? Because fear and misinformation are big problems here.
Very clear on this. It is not airborne. You don't get it like the flu or COVID just by being in the same room.
Okay, not airborne?
Not through water, not through food, unless we're talking about that contaminated bushmeat scenario.
Right.
And not by insects like mosquitoes. It really is about that direct contact with infectious fluids or surfaces contaminated with those fluids.
So when someone does get sick, the onset is sudden.
Typically, yes. Starts with fever, really intense weakness, muscle pain, maybe a headache. Then it often moves to vomiting, diarrhea, which can be bloody, sometimes a rash, and then signs of organ damage like kidney and liver problems.
And the bleeding, the hemorrhage?
It can happen, yes, internal and external bleeding.
Yeah.
But it's not something you see in every single case.
And beyond the terrible illness itself, the sources really underscore the wider impact, don't they?
Oh, definitely. Massive strain on already fragile health systems, serious economic consequences for communities and countries, and just this awful social stigma for survivors and their families. That stigma itself makes public health work much harder.
Given how it spreads, the prevention strategies outlined in the sources seem to focus on, fairly straightforward, but rigorous measures.
Exactly. Rigorous hand hygiene, soap and water, or alcohol rub is fundamental. Avoiding that direct contact with fluids from sick people or the deceased.
Safe handling of bushmeat, if relevant.
Yes. And crucially, in healthcare settings, infection prevention and control is paramount. The sources stress just how vital strict use of personal protective equipment, BPE, is.
Makes sense.
And they also highlight things like risk communication, really engaging with communities to build trust and fight back against, rumors and misinformation. That's essential.
Okay, let's talk countermeasures. Treatment and vaccines. What do the sources say about treatment? Early supportive care is key, right?
Absolutely crucial. That means things like managing fluids and electrolytes, maintaining oxygen levels and blood pressure, treating other infections if they occur, basically supporting the body's functions.
Are there specific Ebola drugs?
Yes. The sources mention 2 specific antiviral treatments that are now approved in Mazeb and Ibanga. But, and this is a really important but based on the species discussion.
Let me guess. They only work for one type.
You got it. Currently, they are only approved for treating the Ebola virus, Ebovi, not the others like SUDV.
Okay, that's a major gap.
Yeah.
What about vaccines? We hear about vaccines being used.
We do have effective vaccines, thankfully, again for Ebovi. The sources mention Ervebo, which has been a game changer. It's often used in ring vaccination.
Ring vaccination?
Yeah, where you quickly vaccinate the contacts of a confirmed case and then their contacts, creating a protective ring or buffer to stop the spread. There's also a 2-dose vaccine regimen, Zabdino and Mvabea, approved for use before exposure to protect people at high risk, like healthcare workers.
So, good tools for Ebovi. But the big challenge, circling right back to what you said, is highlighted clearly in the sources. We currently have no approved vaccines for other dangerous species like Sudan virus, SUDV.
Correct. Candidates are in development, but nothing approved yet. And that's a significant vulnerability when you consider SUDV causes major outbreaks too.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together from our deep dive into these sources. We're looking at Ebola as a serious zoonotic disease, but it's actually a family of viruses, with Ebovi and SUDV being key threats to humans.
Right.
We know now exactly how it spreads direct contact with fluids, crucially only after symptoms start, and importantly, how it doesn't spread, like through the air. And while we have treatments and effective vaccines for the main Ebovi species, the fact that other dangerous types like SUDV exist without those approved tools, well, that leaves a major gap.
And the so what from all this, really drawing from the source's picture of the situation, is that even with progress against one species, Ebola remains a really serious global health threat. You've got these unpredictable spillovers from animals, you've got multiple dangerous virus species, you have challenges with health system capacity and fighting misinformation. It's a complex picture.
Which really leaves us with a final thought, something to mull over based on everything the material presented. Given that constant risk of viruses jumping from animals and the crucial differences between those viruses when it comes to fighting them, how much does this whole situation just scream for that one health approach? The idea that you absolutely cannot separate human health from animal health and the health of the environment we all share. They're fundamentally linked.